Going crazy with internet issues. This is 87 Live, now just the football hour, folks. A special episode just for you. We're just going to plow through this. No breaks. We're going to talk NFL, and at the end, we're calling it an evening, and we're all going to hit the alcohol real hard. Keith Grieve and Steve Taylor here with you, now joined by Jim Sarantias. Follow him on Twitter at The Fantasy Greek from thefantasygreek.com. Jim, thanks for joining us once again.
Keith, thanks for having me. Good to join you guys.
It's a perfect song for this night because I really just want to throw everything internet-related out the window tonight. So we talked earlier about Mike Sam from the angle of my blog post that the media and all the talking heads were just going to ruin this whole thing till we get so sick of talking about a gay football player that we're just going to forget that this kid, at the end of the day, is really a third-round pick tops who's got a big hill ahead of him to carve out a career in the NFL. And we were talking a little bit offline, and so I know you didn't see him per se, but what's your reaction to Mike Sam, the football player?
Well, Mike Sam, the football player, is going to have the same uphill battle that any other player his size, his speed has entering the NFL, and it's this. He's sort of an undersized defensive end, and he's sort of a slow outside linebacker. So, is he going to be a top draft pick? No. Is he going to be a later round draft pick? That depends. And it's going to depend on the rest of his class as well as the needs of teams and what they saw at things like the Senior Bowl, the upcoming combine. So I can't say that it is necessarily for sure that he will get drafted. There may be a better chance that he is signed if he should become an undrafted free agent.
Right. I just... This kid's stock is going to fall, and it's going to have nothing to do with his announcement. And it's just the media is going to just freaking torch it.
Well, and I think that's generally the concern with these sorts of things. And I'm not trying to underplay this at all. I think it's a huge announcement. It's a big deal. You have to applaud him for doing what he's doing because it takes a lot of courage. Just as a general matter, don't just say, "Hey, it's because he's a football player." I mean, it's not just that he's a football player, but it's being announced to the entire world. Mm-hmm. It's not just like he came out to his friends and his family. So, you have to applaud him for that. And, with all the changes socially that are going on in the country, I mean, it's one of those things that eventually was going to happen. And it's sort of probably reality meeting catching up with things,
Let me ask your opinion. If you were going to come out to your parents, would you text it?
Well, I saw that. I forget where I read that he did that. It was, I want to say it was a local paper here, but I'm not certain. No, I mean, here's the thing. I got a sense from the article that I had read that he may not be close to his at least his father, which, I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that are close to their dads, including myself. So would probably know. I mean, me personally, I would probably sit down with them and actually talk to them about it if it were me.
Right.
But that's me.
You're special.
I try.
The other thing I want to talk about is Cleveland.
Oh, God.
Browns.
Actually, I should talk to you about it.
Yeah. I mean, they fire Rob Chudzinski after 1 year. And in the wake of that, you got Norv Turner really a little vocal in the media because he felt like they were being judged on decisions that they were made or that they made under the understanding that this was more than a 1 year deal. And so he was a little bent out of shape about that, but they did what they did anyway. And they kind of dragged out the coaching search, and now comes news that the GM is out, big front office shakeup, and now you're rolling into scouting season without a GM on a team that desperately needs to have all of its ducks in a row when it comes to drafting and free agency. You've got no quarterback, no real running back, a defense that in the right hands might be decent enough to win you some games. Definitely not perfect. All this chaos, and now there's no stability in the front office, and it seems now reports coming out that it all centered around the reported interview of Greg Schiano, where Haslam, the owner, wanted to really hire Schiano based on Bill Belichick's glowing recommendation of him. And the other two, Lombardi and whatnot, didn't want it. So that's why he sacked his entire front office in February. If you're a free agent, what on earth would make you think about going to Cleveland at this point?
Well, the simple answer to that would be money. But you hope that most players they consider that along with opportunity.
You're going to get that anywhere, though. If you're a free agent, you're going to get money anywhere.
No. But opportunity, meaning the opportunity to be on a team that is promising. And right now, with the way everything is shaking out with Cleveland, that's certainly not the impression that is necessarily being given. All that having been said, I mean, this is sort of par for the course with the organization, and at some point, even ownership has to admit that we need to pick people that we can stick with for a few years. We need some stability. You can't every year hire or fire and then hire new people. Now, in this instance, it's from within. I did get a chance to see the press conference with Ray Farmer, and I'll have to tell you, the media let him have it as they should have. He answered a lot of tough questions, and he did a great job. I have never seen anyone show such poise and such courage under fire, and that made me feel good. Just being a person, an observer, an unbiased observer from the outside, sort of looking in, sort of saying, here's a fellow that looks like he's got his head on straight. He's going to do the right things for the organization. If Jimmy Haslam doesn't want to, that's his business. But I think the Browns are going to be fine. I mean, it's not like they fired the entire scouting department. They're starting from scratch. Mm-hmm. So they've got evaluations on players already. They have a system. And in fact, Farmer was asked that direct question, and he brought up that exact answer, which we have a system in place, and that's what we're going to go with. And that's the right answer. I mean, you don't just suddenly scrap everything and start over. I like the Mike Patine hiring. I was a little confused in the sense, I like the Browns defense. I think all the help they need is on the offensive side of the ball. But they've got a new offensive coordinator, and they'll deal with those issues as they should. They've got some talent. Certainly, we were talking about Josh Gordon, and you got to like him. They're going to need a running back. That's going to probably be their biggest either free agency signing or one of their top draft picks. I mean, this is a team that if they can just get their feet on the ground, they should do some positive things in 2014. And certainly Jimmy Haslam needs to lay off at this point. I don't think anybody could deal with any more major changes going forward.
Mm-hmm. It's just there's no other word for it but chaotic. How can any business run this way and with little or no what's the word I'm looking for? Well, typically what a franchise, when you're talking about a sports business or sports team, a sports franchise, what a franchise's end goal is, so you can see them start to do the little things, whether they make the right choices or not. You see a team get a coach, and then they supplement that with the best assistants they can find. And then they try to, if they don't have a quarterback, they try to get one. And they build the offensive line and defensive line. This has become so hodgepodge, so chaotic, so anywhere and everywhere that I agree with what everyone's saying. No one has it worse than Cleveland Browns fans right now.
Oh, without question. Without question. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a Cleveland Browns fan right now.
There is nothing that makes you hopeful about the Cleveland Browns. Absolutely nothing. And they got a head coach that no one saw coming, who's a defensive-minded coach on a defensively strong team. It just doesn't, you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. Nothing about this franchise makes any sense to me. But maybe Haslam's firing the guys that got in the way. We'll see what happens.
So is it your understanding that the powers that be before the firings or the resignations, they did not want to hire Mike Pettine, but rather a different coach?
What I read the other day was that Bill Belichick gave a glowing recommendation about Greg Schiano.
Oh, no. But my question was whether Mike Lombardi wanted to hire a different coach from Mike Pettine.
It wasn't Lombardi. It was the other one. And I'm blanking out on his name. I'm trying to find the freaking article right now.
Okay.
There was two people that got fired the other day. There was Lombardi.
Yeah. And then the CEO, president of the organization.
Yes. That whatever his name is, was very cold to Schiano and kind of soured on it right from the Joe Banner. Sorry.
Joe. Yeah.
So it makes me think that neither of them could come to a conclusion, and they ended up with Mike Pettine or however you say his name. Pettine. Kind of like, well, there's nobody else that we can all agree on, so let's just go with this guy. So how many years does this guy get? Now Brandon Whedon speaks up and he wants out of Cleveland. Well, who wouldn't?
Things are bad when Brandon Whedon wants out of Cleveland.
Brandon Whedon should be thankful he's got a job. Period. But
Whedon clearly has no future in Cleveland. I mean, this past season has, sort of devolved. There, you could tell that there wasn't much support for him this year with the changes in the coaching staff and even in the higher ups. Yeah. So, his time was limited anyway. And, in a way, it's always bothersome when a player comes out and this comes out in the media because, the conversation should be going on internally and quietly, so to speak. Mm-hmm. That to me just always seems like the right thing to do. But so be it, it's happened. And, there's nothing you can do. And it's obviously no surprise. The Browns are going to be one of their top draft picks taking a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. I think Whedon will be able to find a backup job somewhere.
Any chance you think that they'll trade for Kirk Cousins? The whole Kyle Shanahan connection to Washington?
Yeah, there's always a chance, but somewhere I got the impression that Shanahan himself said that he wasn't interested.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't trust anything that comes out of any coach's mouth this time of year.
No, exactly.
Anything. Did you see the Houston Texans are now following Johnny Manziel on Twitter?
I did not. But
seriously, as every day that goes by, it seems more and more likely that he's going to end up there.
It just blows my mind. But stranger things have happened.
Yeah, how a team makes their personnel decisions, that's always sort of it's a mystery. I mean, what you believe to be the right move or the better player, somebody else disagrees. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong.
All right. So
obviously Gary Angelo is wrong.
Let's talk about Jerry Angelo because we're all Bears fans. Yeah, Jerry. I was a regular visitor to FireJerryAngelo.com years before it actually happened. So he gets on the air and starts evaluating Jay Cutler. And let's see if I got the article right here. And I'm reading this off from Michael C. Wright's piece on ESPN.com. Evaluating all the quarterbacks from last season for thesidelineview.com. Angelo ranked Cutler number 15 out of the league's 32 starters. Angelo said that Cutler, who last month signed a 7-year, $126 million contract, lacked poise and struggled to read defenses. He has all the physical tools, but inconsistent in the clutch, mostly due to a lack of poise. He's not comfortable reading defenses and consequently locks onto a favorite or predetermined target that may or may not be the right choice. The less he's asked to see, the better he is, a better half-field general than a full-field one. He's a better half-field general because that's all you gave him time to see, Jerry, by refusing to address the offensive line when he was there. and then you bring in Mike Martz to run an offense, and we all know what long drops do with no offensive line. You get your quarterback killed. So who are you, Jerry Angelo, to get up on your high horse and start ripping apart Jay Cutler when you are part of the problem? I'm done. Take it.
I'm not sure.
I'm probably the only one of the. I'm probably the only one of the three of us that agrees with Jerry Angelo.
Oh, come on, man! Look, Jay Cutler.
And you know what? And as much as I do not like Stephen A. Smith, he made a bet with Brandon Marshall, who last time he was on ESPN First Take, he went on and on about Cutler like he always does because they are good friends. But Stephen A. Smith made a bet with him that if Cutler has an off season, he has to go back on the show and admit that he was wrong. And it's just, to me, I don't know why it's only apparent to me for some reason. I see, I agree with what he says. I look at Jay Cutler and I do not see what you guys see. I don't know what it is, but I just do not see it. And I think this year it's going to be an eye-opening experience for everybody.
Well, I haven't said anything yet, just for the record, Steve.
Well, I just remember what you've said in the past, so I've kind of got off.
What have I said in the past?
I've bashed Cutler before, and you and Keith have backed him up.
All right. Well, I don't like bashing players. That's the first thing. I don't necessarily disagree with Jerry Angelo's comments. I actually think it's a bit sobering because Cutler just signs this huge contract. We've got this great new coach, great new offense. And, I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, here's some things wrong with the guy. And quite frankly, I went back and because I'm sitting down and I'm doing my rankings for this for next season. And I actually, as of right now, with unadjusted numbers, I have to go back and now look at coaching changes and the such. And as free agency goes, again, adjust numbers. But I have Cutler as the 13th ranked quarterback in the NFL. On my board, and you look at his numbers, and I went back to this. I mean, look at this. He had 19 TDs and 12 interceptions. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous. You project these numbers out, and he's only thrown 3,800 yards, 28 TDs, 18 interceptions, and I find that to be certainly not elite numbers. And I wouldn't even necessarily say middle-of-the-road numbers. You look at Josh McCown, on the other hand. My God, in 5 games, he threw 1,800 yards, 13 TDs, and one interception. And he showed a lot of poise, a lot of leadership. He executed the offense. He took what he was given, and he was willing to make plays. And when Angelo talks about Cutler locking in on a receiver, we've all seen that. We've seen him lock into Brandon Marshall and throw the ball to him. And Brandon Marshall is just a talented wide receiver. Plus, he's a big-bodied wide receiver. I mean, this offense sets up right for Jay Cutler, but he can't throw 28 TDs and 18 interceptions. He's got to throw 30 to 35 TDs and 10 interceptions, and that's it. And until he can do that, he's going to have some of these characteristics such as lacking poise. Because a quarterback that lacks poise cannot achieve those sorts of elite numbers. Period.
Josh McCown's,
I agree with you.
Josh McCown's big games came against Green Bay, who had the 24th ranked passing defense, against St. Louis, that had the 19th ranked passing defense, against Minnesota, that had the 31st ranked passing defense, and against Dallas, whose passing defense is notoriously horrific last year. No, I'll get their ranking right now. Hold on one second. 30th.
No.
So his games are those numbers are weighted, is my point. Jay Cutler.
So wait, are you saying Jay Cutler had 11 difficult games?
No, but McCown clearly had the cream puff part of the schedule. Cutler,
well, first of all, I disagree with the Rams. I don't think that was a defense that was playing subpar at the time that they played them. I mean, that just, I think, goes without saying. Some of the other defenses you pointed out had games where they did play fairly well. But, McCown was not a very good quarterback before this season. I think we would all agree with that. In fact,
Absolutely.
I think when McCown went in, we were sitting there going, oh boy, everything's downhill from now for the Bears. And instead, he thrived in the offense. Just thrived. Jay Cutler didn't thrive because he threw 19 TDs and 12 interceptions in 11 games. He wasn't even averaging 2 touchdowns per game.
Cutler is not perfect by any means. But you look at the difference between McCown and Cutler, and McCown does not have the physical tools to throw the deep ball or the deep outs, and you do not keep that on the field when you have the ability to do that on the bench.
Well, here, what I will say to that is I will leave the talent evaluation to those coaches because clearly they believe exactly what you said, and they were willing to sign him. What was it, a 4-year deal, $18 million a year?
Yeah.
So they're in bed with Jay Cutler.
Well, it's really a 3-year deal with 4 1-year team options after that.
Oh, okay.
It's a fantastic deal for the Bears. All anybody sees is the dollar signs, and they're screaming overpaid. But they're giving Jay Cutler, not you, Jim, but they're giving them 3 years to say, look, this is your team. If Mark Trestman can do this with Josh McCown, you need to be able to do this too. And now that they've solidified the offensive line, although I would like to see them find a center of the future because Garza doesn't have that much tread left on the tires. But now they need to figure out what the hell's going on defense.
Yeah,
well, you may get your wish because Garza's a free agent. So,
yeah. But see, the thing with even giving him 3 years, if 3 years go by and it doesn't work out, like I believe it's not going to, that's 3 more years on Matt Forte. That's 3 more years on Brandon Marshall. 2 very important parts of the offense that, they're going to come to the end of their run the same time he does. So to me, it's like you have this insanely talented team. I'm just not sold that he's the one that's going to take them to the promised land. So to me, even 3 years is too much. Because of just like what Jim said, and some of the criticisms I heard today coming off the Angelo thing, Cutler, part of the poise problem he has is his arrogance. When he's in the pocket, if he sees a throw that he wants to make, he's going to throw it. He doesn't care how many defenders are there. He is going to make the throw because he believes he can. And there are very few quarterbacks in this league that are going to be able to make those kind of passes in between 2-3 players. And to me, having a quarterback that has the ability mentally to do the job as well as physically, because if you look at Peyton Manning, he's one of the least physically talented players playing quarterback right now because of his age, because of his neck injuries. But he's so smart, and he knows exactly where to put the ball and when to throw the ball and when not to throw the ball. And I'm not saying that, Peyton's on a level on his own, but that just shows that you could have a player that doesn't have the physical abilities that Cutler does have, which are incredible. But you could have a player that has less physical ability, but more, mental ability when it comes to running the offense and making the correct throws. And that's my only problem with Cutler's. I just think he doesn't have the mentality to be that I'm going to take you to the promised land quarterback. I just don't think he does.
I think you're reading way too much into what you see on you can't read into somebody's personality like that. He's a gunslinger quarterback. I personally would rather have somebody with that kind of arm be willing to take those chances. If Jay Cutler is the quarterback that some turnovers come with the package, then that's what he is. But when you have a running back like Matt Forte, you've got receivers like Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall, and you got the tight end Martellus Bennett. He doesn't have any other excuses for them not to win games.
Now I will say this, and I didn't double check this to see if it changed with that last game of the season, but the Bears had the number 2 scoring offense, I believe. But here's an interesting stat. If you take the pass attempts of Jay Cutler and Josh McCown and just the rush attempts of Matt Forte, here's the breakdown in the percentages, and I couldn't believe it. It totals up, by the way, to 868 plays.
Mm.
The Bears ran the ball through Matt Forte 1/3 of the time, and they passed the ball 2/3 of the time. And I kid you not, it's 33.3% and 66.7%.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bears did have the second highest scoring offense. They scored 1 more point than the Patriots, for second place. So, but just to give some freaking perspective to this, the Bears were second with 445. New England was third with 444. The Eagles were fourth with 442. The Broncos were first with 606.
Yeah. Oh.
Difference of 10 points per game.
I will say this: if Jay Cutler could sort of imitate or replicate Josh McCown's play in his 5 games, he'd be a 4,500-yard passer, 32 TDs on 13 interceptions. Boy, I would take that any time of the day.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be an important year for him. I think this is his biggest year as far as criticism. You know, if he plays well, I think he could silence a lot of critics. But if he has another 500 season where he throws multiple picks and, you know, regardless of how many scores, you know, how many points you put on the board, if you turn the ball over in the wrong moments at the wrong times, just ask Tony Romo, doesn't matter how many points you put up. So I think this is a huge year for him. If he tanks this year, it could be kind of problems in the future.
I think about Jay Cutler and what the numbers don't tell you. And yes, for every time he throws into double coverage and you scratch your head and you're just wondering what the hell he was looking at, there's plays like the throw that he made to Marshall on the goal line fade against Green Bay in the finale. You know what I mean? He didn't lose that game for them. You know, those kind of things that not every quarterback has the ability to do. And he is not perfect, but he's still a top 10 quarterback. If you're not going to find somebody that's higher ranked than him in the league, then it's just a waste of money to try to change. Just saying.
Keith, I think you just wrapped it up in a nutshell right there.
No, this is me in a nutshell. Help, somebody get me out of this incredibly large nutshell. All right. So let's start with our first of the offseason, the franchise colonoscopy, the Buffalo Bills. Let's take this team apart. Overall NFL rankings, 28th in passing offense, 2nd in rushing yards, 4th in pass defense, but 28th in rushing yards. So obviously, as their record would have you believe, very up and down season for the Buffalo Bills. They started out almost like you wanted to believe that they were going to turn the corner back to relevance, but then I think, in my own opinion, injuries caught up to them. Any team that has to start Thad Lewis and Jeff Toole, you're asking an awful lot from that entire team. But their secondary got decimated. E.J. Manuel was off and on the field. Just kind of a can't-win situation for them. What are your guys' takes on the Bills' results?
It's, you know, I think a lot of the issues that they ended up having were on the offensive end because they had a rookie quarterback who was very shaky. I mean, they had an amazing rushing attack with both C.J. Spiller and Fred Thomas, yeah. Fred Jackson. I'm thinking baseball right now.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah. So you look at their offense. A lot of the games they lost was just stupid errors made by E.J. Manuel in key moments. And then they had those times when he was injured and you know, you had a rotation of quarterbacks that wouldn't be starting on most teams in the NFL. So to me, I'm not surprised by this. I think that they have a lot of positives to look forward to for next season. If EJ Manuel can be a little more consistent, the rushing attack I think will be there regardless. The defense, they seem like they gelled last season and they're only going to get better. So to me, you know, I think Buffalo can look at the season as kind of a start of something new. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're a 500 or better team next season.
You know, yeah, the key here for the Buffalo Bills on the offense is they have to absolutely 100% throw the ball more than they did last season. Compared to the Bears, where I just mentioned that they had 579 passes, the Bills had 522 between the three quarterbacks. And while the 50 passes doesn't sound like a lot, in reality, it ends up being a lot because when you look at how many times they ran the ball, Fred Jackson, C.J. Spiller combined for 408 rushes. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Just crazy. So, you know, they need to throw the ball. E.J. Manuel needs to sort of be unleashed not held back. I mean, whether you want to say he was ineffective, that's fine. I mean, it's expected as a rookie. And he did miss what? He missed 7 games, I believe, to injury. So
6 or 7 or somewhere.
yeah. So I mean, they have some things to do. They actually need to beef up that offensive line. I sat down and I looked at a couple numbers for the Bills. Their offensive line allowed the 5th most sacks at 48, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. But what's worse is they were 4th in quarterback hits at 108. And I've put this, and I don't know if there's a stat like this out there, but I'm calling it my how many smacks there were. And there were 156, and that was the 3rd most in the league. So quarterbacks that were Buffalo Bills got hit 156 times or sacked. And I mean, that's just awful. Right. It's just awful. Yeah. So, if you can get some protection for E.J. Manuel with that young and very talented wide receiving group, with a solid running back and C.J. Spiller, who should have a bounce-back season. And not to say that his season was bad. He was hurt. He had a high ankle sprain that he battled through. This offense should be able to turn it around because the defense, I mean, if you're going to gripe about anything, it's their rush defense. And points allowed, they were 20th at 24.2. But, an NFL team should be able to, on average, score more than 24.2 points per game. That's all that needs to be said. And as far as their defense is concerned, they're going to have needs. Their key free agents are Alan Branch. I want to say they picked him up for a year contract from the Seahawks. And now he's gone. Their biggest free agent is going to be Jairus Byrd. Without him, I mean, this is a pass defense that it was number 4 in the league. So they're now going to lose their best defender potentially. More than likely they will. It seems to me Jairus Byrd has not wanted to be with the Bills, but who knows? Like I said, money can keep people happy. Tight end Scott Chandler is also a free agent. And one of the big changes is going to be Scott Linehan, their new defensive coordinator. You could say what you want about the Lions. My take on them was always their pass defense was horrible.
Jim Schwartz,
I'm sorry, Jim Schwartz, excuse me. Yeah, Jim Schwartz, I'm sorry. Yeah. But the one thing that they always did have was a great, beefy middle of, the defensive line was tough. You got the same thing with the Bills. Linebackers, they've got linebackers. It's just their secondary. And they've got decent personnel. I mean, they've only got 10 free agents, which is actually pretty low compared to some of the other teams.
And you look at, and I'm trying to see what Jairus Byrd's contract situation is. I'm scrolling.
But Jim Schwartz, he was the defensive coordinator for the Titans, as I recall. Is that right?
Yeah, he was before he was the head coach of the Lions.
Okay. And when he was the defensive coordinator, and I believe he was defensive coordinator for 7 seasons, in 4 of those seasons, the Titans were top 10, one of the top 10 defenses. So there's certainly a pedigree here that he's bringing to this team that should be able to help a team that, like I said, already has a good group of people. And I sat down with Corbin Bryant, defensive end, defensive tackle for the Bills, and you could read my interview of him on thefantasygreek.com. But one of the things he emphasized to me was we have a great group of guys coming back. And I couldn't agree with him more.
Right. Yeah. I said Jairus Byrd. I meant Leotis McKelvin. Sorry. I know you were just talking about Jairus Byrd. I am listening.
But McKelvin's a free agent too, as I recall.
No, he's under contract.
Oh, he's not?
No, he's under contract all the way through 2017.
Well, I'm sorry. I was thinking of somebody else.
The 2016 season. Sorry.
There we go. That's a long time.
Yeah. So the corners are under contract if you like Stephon Gilmore and Leotis McKelvin. But you think about building a defense from the middle out. So between Kyle Williams and Marcel Darius, and Kiko Alonso had a fantastic year, they seem to be pretty set there if they can keep those guys healthy and under contract. Bird is a free agent, like you said, and at free safety, and Jim Leonard, the strong safety, is a free agent too. And you could say whether or not he's a difference maker or not, probably up for argument. But that those two positions would probably have to be something that they definitely need to look at in free agency or the draft. I don't know how deep this draft is safety-wise, but on defense, the whole secondary really needs a shot in the arm as far as talent-wise. And if you're going to, that's with Jarius Byrd. If you're going to lose Jarius Byrd, then you're just putting yourself behind the 8 ball.
Mm.
I'll say, though, if they need to just upgrade a couple positions on their offensive line, and that should cure any issues with E.J. Manuel, and just let the guy play.
Would be maybe one more pass catcher to go with Stevie Johnson.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they've got 3 young guys. Robert Woods, Marquise Goodwin, and who's their 4th guy?
Hogan?
DJ Graham. Right?
I'm looking at their depth chart. I don't see.
Yeah, Steve Johnson, T.J. Graham, Robert Woods, Marquise Goodwin.
Oh,
so I think they've got a great set of young guys.
Well, remains to be seen. They shocked the world by taking E.J. Manuel when they did, so we'll see how that all plays out. The one I do like some of the coaching moves that they made. I mean, Jim Schwartz, like you said, has run fantastic defenses in the past, but they also named Pepper Johnson defensive line coach and Rob Moore wide receivers coach. Rob Moore, who has ties to Syracuse as well, Syracuse grad, was a good wideout for some bad Cardinals teams in the 90s. So bringing some coaches in that have played the game recently, it might bode well as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and now we'll stay in the AFC East, and let's take apart the Miami Dolphins, a team that obviously I had big dreams for this year. I picked them to win 10 games in the division. They had that off-the-field mess with Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin, which surprisingly is back in the news again, but we're not going to talk about it. Big free agent signing last offseason was signing Mike Wallace from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was MIA for half the season for whatever reason. His fault, coaching staff's fault, whatever you want to call it. Mike Sherman sacked his offensive coordinator in the offseason. The defense was a little bit stronger than I thought, but they played well for the most part, I thought. Brent Grimes was a nice add as a cornerback. Donnell Ellerbe, coming over from the Ravens, maybe didn't do everything everyone thought he would be, coming off, being a member of a Super Bowl winning championship team. But the Dolphins are a team where if the right buttons are pushed, might be able to make that push this year that I thought they were going to make last year. What do you guys think?
No, I agree with you, and I think one of the keys to this team is, and it's going to be the key to quite a few teams, is they need to figure out how to run the ball. And I know their offensive line has issues, especially losing 2 players with Martin Incognito. To me, Tannehill, he underperformed. Some of it was due to injury. Some of it was the fact that he was pressured quite a bit. And you could say that did lead to the issues they had in the rushing game. If they can get those 2 parts of their offense on track, and their defense, which we know is good, slightly underperformed last season. If they can get on track as well, this team, they were 8-8. It's not going to take much for them to have 2 more wins, and a 10-6 team would have made the postseason this year.
Right, and they were still in it at the end too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. I mean, obviously on offense, and Steve, I completely agree with you. They need to improve their rush game, and it's really they need to improve the effectiveness of their rush game. Mm-hmm. I had heard somewhere somebody griping about the Dolphins abandoning the run, and while I definitely got that impression when I actually sat down and looked at the numbers, between Lamar Miller and Daniel Thomas combined, they ran the ball 286 times, which is very comparable to Matt Forte over at 289. Now, you might say, well, they should have ran it more. I mean, Arian Foster any of those elite running backs, workhorse types, would have run the ball over 300 times. But I don't think that that's the case. I will say that with Bill Lazor coming over from the Eagles, what will likely happen is we'll see the Dolphins commit to a running back. I don't think they're going to go into a timeshare like we saw last year. Because one of the things that I always griped about when it came to Lamar Miller was he was only getting about 10 touches a game. When he would get 20, I mean, his numbers would just go through the roof because he was able to pull off longer runs. So, he's coming from the Eagles. We all saw how they used LaShawn McCoy. I think that's what they're going to try to do this time around. Get a running back, and I don't know that it'll be Lamar Miller or Daniel Thomas. They may either try to pick somebody up in free agency or through the draft or both and go that route. But I think that is a position of need for them and something that they're going to look to address. And so we should see a change in those numbers.
Some decisions to make as far as free agency goes. Tyson Clabo, their right tackle, is an unrestricted free agent. Brent Grimes is also an unrestricted free agent. And probably someone that I feel won't be returning, Randy Starks, defensive tackle. Probably, a little long on the tooth going into his 12th year. With Jared Odrick behind him on the depth chart. I had a decent season last year. 4.5 sacks from the D-tackle position, 1 forced fumble. Probably seen the last of Starks in a Dolphins uniform.
By the way, safety Chris Clements, he's going to be a free agent.
Yeah.
And two more by the ways. Ryan Tannehill had 588 pass attempts last season. That was the 7th most in the NFL.
Yeah.
And in terms of their smacks, 158, that was number 2.
Yeah.
They led the league in 58 sacks allowed and were number 5 quarterback hits at 100.
Also, Nolan Carroll is an unrestricted free agent. So 3 out of the 4 DB positions in the Dolphins' defense are swinging in the breeze right now.
Oh.
So some work to be done. How about this? Let me throw out this name to you. Maurice Jones-Drew.
Oof.
Stays in the same state. No income tax. It's not nothing.
You never know.
I know he's saying all the right things.
The concern with Jones-Drew is I don't know if he's the same running back that we saw a couple seasons ago.
No, he may not be, especially with the injuries that he had not last season, but the season before. But if they come at him with an offer, and he's like you said, what Philadelphia did with LaShawn McCoy, the opportunity to be a part of that in Miami. I don't know. Miami's a little bit more high profile than Jacksonville as far as social life, if you know what I mean.
But if they're gonna go after a free agent, and I don't know what their cap situation is, but I mean the number 1 running back free agent is probably going to be Ben Tate. There's a guy that would be worth going after if you're going to go into free agency. I know Sean Moreno's a free agent, but I'm not so sure how he would. I don't know. I think he benefited greatly by playing with Peyton Manning. And after that, I mean, who else we got?
As far as running back free agents?
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up my list.
I think it's a little thin.
There are going to be a lot of teams going after Ben Tate. I have a feeling he is going to be highly sought after.
Here's my top 10 list. I actually have no Sean Moreno at number 1, then Ben Tate, then Darren McFadden, then Rashad Jennings. But I think Jennings, the Raiders are going to do all they can to keep him. LeGarrette Blount, Andre Brown, James Starks, Richard Mendenhall, Donald Brown, Ahmad Bradshaw, and then let's throw in Jones-Drew.
There's some names on that list.
There are some names on that list. Definitely some names.
But I see Blunt staying with New England. I see
know.
it just like you're saying with Moreno. I just see them both staying with Denver and New England. I just can't see a scenario where they would let him go, especially when they got so close last season.
But I don't see the Patriots overpaying for him.
No,
That's true.
not with Shane Vereen and
Stephen Ridley.
Stephen Ridley as well.
Yeah. So I think Blount moves on because he'll be offered an amount of money that makes him go, I'm leaving.
But now, as far as McFadden goes, how many teams are going to be throwing money at him with his injury issues?
Well, McFadden is probably, if a team's going to look at him, they're going to look to they're already going to have a running back in place that they feel comfortable, sort of in a running back by committee situation. And what teams will be, I haven't sat down to look at that.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
How about Ben Tate made $730,000 with the Texans last year?
That's ridiculous.
That's insane.
We're laughing at that. It's chump change in the NFL these days.
Considering McFadden made $7 million with the Raiders.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the running backs that interest me are guys like Andre Brown, who was actually pretty effective when he came back from his injury. James Starks, who, he's basically buried behind Eddie Lacy with the Packers. Ahmad Bradshaw, one of the qualifiers of him is whatever his injury was and his surgeries, how he's doing. But you can't say that he doesn't give it his all. I mean, when he came back from injury last year with the Colts against the 49ers, I mean, he just ate up the 49ers. Ate them up.
You know what I want to see? I want to see Jackie Battle in a San Diego Chargers uniform. Do you know why?
Again?
Because that name screams 70s movie star.
It totally does.
Jackie Battle. Yes.
He's in the powder blues. That's what he needs.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying, but I'm saying.
But you're saying.
John Kuhn made $2.5 million last year.
You're kidding.
John Kuhn made $2.5 million, but Ben Tate was making $700,000.
Wow.
Should have fired his agent.
I'll tell you, not to get ahead of ourselves, but speaking of the Texans, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Gary Kubiak can do with the Ravens offense. Just, it's an ideal situation with a quarterback that is certainly talented, but, is either not getting the protection, doesn't have the right receivers to throw the football to. It should definitely help Dennis Pitta,
See, Flacco's not somebody I'm very high on. I think he got his money because he won the Super Bowl, but I really think that they overpaid for what they got there. But
I don't know that they overpaid because of how well he played in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this season was just a train wreck for the Ravens. It just, nothing was working right, and they made a mistake by letting go of Anquan Bolden. I thought.
Mm-hmm.
That changed their team significantly. Torrey Smith couldn't carry it alone, and I don't think he was getting much help from Marlon Brown or Jacoby Jones. Dennis Pitta missing him for most of the season, even though I think Ed Dixon is a decent enough tight end, because people forget that the two of them came into the team together, and it was Ed Dixon that was the better tight end to start with. And then it seemed the following season, after Ed Dixon had the big year, it was Dennis Pitta who had the big year, and it sort of stuck with him. Maybe it was just him getting used to playing in the NFL, what have you, but that's the situation. In any case, to see Gary Kubiak there, I think that'll be interesting. But when we get to the Ravens, they're going to have their own free agency issues. They got a lot of guys, especially on the offensive line, that are free agents.
Mm-hmm.
So the Dolphins are picking 19th. I'm looking at the running back rankings. It doesn't seem to be the highest ranked running back on CBSSports.com is a second rounder. There's really nobody coming out. So if they're going to make a move to upgrade that position, it's going to have to come off the free agent.
Now, it's possible what you're seeing is, a lot of places with all the juniors, they haven't exactly got them ranked yet.
Yeah, they got all the juniors on this. There's two to three round.
Okay. Well, here, the Dolphins, their top needs are going to be the offensive line, guard and tackle. For obvious reasons, they lost Incognito and Martin. defensive tackle. They needed to stop that rush, safety, and then running back, and pick the order that it should be in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm very curious to see what happens with Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I remember when I saw him in person, live in the flesh. I mean, he's not a very big guy in terms of his height, but body-wise, I mean, he's a fire plug. Just his legs are huge.
Good word, fire plug.
Fire plug, yeah.
There's how many backs on that free agent list that we just went down could be legitimate 3-down backs that you wouldn't worry about them getting nicked. I mean, you look at Donald Brown. I don't know if I feel comfortable about his health. Rashard Mendenhall has been hurt in the past. Sean Moreno's been hurt in the past. Darren McFadden's been hurt in the past. Maurice Jones-Drew's been hurt in the past. The only one that I really feel comfortable about is LeGarrette Blount because he's just
a bruiser.
You know, he needs to be on a team with a good offensive line.
Yeah.
If their offensive line is struggling, then I would expect him to struggle.
Because he got
Andre.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say he got swallowed up in Tampa Bay when they were struggling.
Yeah. So I think James Starks could be an every down back on the right team.
He's had injury issues too.
He has, but I mean, when he's been healthy, he's been phenomenally good. Mm-hmm. Andre Brown has shown flashes of being good. I think Donald Brown's a little small for his size, or a little bit small. I mean, he's not he's a guy that you could see putting together 100 all-purpose yards and 1 to 2 scores. But, 50 yards worth of rushing, 50 yards worth of passing, not a full 100 yards rushing unless he breaks a huge, huge run.
Mm-hmm. He's 5'10", 207.
The weight's good, but the size, I mean, that's a small guy.
Yeah, teeny tiny. Might as well be Garrett Wolf.
I really wish Darren McFadden could stay healthy. And, maybe if he gets onto a decent team with a decent offensive line, he will. Who knows?
Be interesting to see. So, yeah, there you have it, folks. It's that magic time. Time to say goodbye until next week. For Jim Sarantias from thefantasygreek.com and Steve Taylor, I'm Keith Grieve. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you all next week.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.